Hello, everybody. Welcome to another live stream. Lar Ryan from Complete Test Success here. And today we're doing a Q&A. So it's pretty straightforward. Any questions you have about the IELTS test, just ask. Or any problems that you're experiencing or like, issues that you don't know how to fix, just explain to me what your problems are. And I'll be able to give you some guidance and basically point you in the right direction. That's pretty much it. That's what we're doing today. So if you have any questions, just go ahead. Otuka, hello to you. Welcome. FF, hi. Good to see you here again. Hi, Mohammed. Welcome to the lesson. Otuka says, I need help with reading, especially true, false, not given. Okay, so there are a few things with true, false, not given. The first one is that you will find the answers in the same order as the questions. So, for example, if you have question 1, 2, 3, 4, as you read through the text, the first answer you'll find is number 1. The second one is number 2. The third one is number 3. So they come in the same order. So that's useful. And then, for example, if you find the answer to number 1 and the answer to number 3, so obviously you know that number 2 is between those, which could be quite helpful, especially if the answer is not given, because if you've read between 1 and 3 and you can't find it, you can be more confident to choose not given. A very common problem with true, false, not given questions is that students don't have the confidence to choose not given. So the experience you feel, so like if you're looking for an answer and you cannot find the answer, and you're looking for an answer and the answer is not given, those are the same experiences. Like the feeling that you get of I can't find it, when genuinely like you can't find it and it's your fault, or you can't find it because really it's not given. That's the same experience. So a lot of students, they don't have the confidence to go, I cannot find it, that means not given. They think, I cannot find it, I must be doing something wrong, this is my fault, I need to spend more time looking. And what happens in that situation is students lose a lot of time because they don't have the confidence to just write down not given. So if you've done what you need to do and you cannot find the answer, very often choosing not given and moving on is the best thing to do. But you should also analyze your incorrect answers. So, once you finish answering the questions, if you got 3 of them wrong, like what was the correct answer? Why was that the correct answer? And the one that you chose, the incorrect answer, understanding where you went wrong, what mistake you made, what weakness you have. And when you understand exactly what went wrong, you can fix the problem. But what happens with a lot of students is they check how many they got right, they check how many they got wrong, and then they do another practice test. So if you're not finding out why you've made the mistake or what mistake you've made, then you won't know what you're supposed to do to fix it. So that's really important as well. I'm not sure if I've given you the information you need. If I haven't, let me know more specifically what your problem is. But hopefully I've given you some useful information there. Nijina Banu, hello, hi to you. Can I pass the speaking mock exam today? So we're just doing a Q&A. We're just doing a Q&A session today. We did speaking last week, so it's on a cycle of like about 5 or 6 different types of live stream that we focus on different topics each week. So it'll be another maybe 4 or 5 weeks. And also I'm not doing any live stream next week. I'm taking a bit of a break for myself. So that'll add an extra week to that. I'm not sure the exact date, but it'll be another about 4 or 5 weeks, I'd say. CC, hi Lar, hi CC. I would like to ask, when I want to improve my writing, for example, I should not do one writing task after another, even though I can find some native speakers to help check mistakes. but it's still not efficient to do so. I should improve my weakness area one by one, then start to write. Writing a lot of writing tasks will not help me to improve my score. Is my understanding correct? I mean, practicing essays is an important part of your preparation, but it just depends what your weaknesses are. So if your weakness is that you're making too many grammar mistakes, well, then yes, you need to stop writing essays and you need to study grammar. Or if your weakness is that you are, you don't have the vocabulary range to get the score that you need, well, then yes, you need to stop writing essays and you need to start studying vocabulary. But then, if the problem is your task achievement, so you're not good at coming up with the ideas that you need, if you're not able to think of your ideas fast enough, if you come up with ideas that are irrelevant, or your development isn't appropriate, or you end up choosing vague ideas. So, if it's this type of problem, well, then planning essays will help you. Actually, writing the essays doesn't really help with that part. It's the planning of the essays is where you will fix it. So planning lots of essays would be better than writing lots of essays. But then, of course, you still need to practice writing essays to make sure you've got your time management right, to make sure that, you can follow the structures and that you're not getting lost in certain places. So certainly, once you get your vocab and your grammar, your referencing, your cohesive devices all to the place they need to be, then practicing essays is very important. But, it's not the solution to every problem. So in short, really, the answer to your question, CC, is it depends what your problem is. It depends what problem you're experiencing, and you need different solutions for different problems. So it's definitely not that writing essays isn't a good idea. It is a good idea. It's just not the ultimate solution for every problem. Hi, Domenico. Good to see you here. Hafiz, how do you tackle a technical question in speaking test that you've no clue about? Like, if I'm asked, talk about an extinct animal in your country, and I have no idea, they wouldn't ask a question like that. They wouldn't ask a question like that because some countries will have an extinct animal, some countries won't. I think most people wouldn't even be able to. They wouldn't know if they're like I, for example, I don't know if there are any animals that are extinct in my country. We don't. There aren't any dinosaur fossils found here. So I think possibly what you found is a random question on a random website that wasn't actually used in the real IELTS test. They wouldn't ask a question like that because they're not going to ask a question that a few people will have experienced and most people won't. That's not what they're going to do. They're looking for topics that everybody can answer. They're not trying to catch you with, oh, you have no knowledge of this topic. In the IELTS test, they don't care how knowledgeable you are in various topics. They don't care if your answers are factually correct or incorrect. All they care about is give you something to talk about so that the examiner can analyze your fluency, vocab, grammar, pronunciation. So if your ideas are wrong, that isn't a problem. And a question like this just wouldn't appear in the IELTS test. Because again, I would struggle to answer this question. Well, in fact, what I would probably talk about is the fact that I don't know if there are any extinct animals in my country, and I'd probably talk about why I don't know. If I was to get a topic that I have no idea about, I'd talk about the fact that I have no idea and explain that. But in general, this particular question wouldn't appear in the IELTS test. They wouldn't put people in a situation where they have nothing to talk about. They're looking for questions that will actually be helpful, or that will actually be relatively easy for most people to talk about. Can I ask a question? Is it okay in speaking portion of IELTS exams if in part 2 they'll ask about describe your favorite thing, and I'll tell them about my father who bought it for me? Yeah, definitely. So describe the best gift you've ever received, and you go, oh, well, the best gift I ever received is from my father. And then you want to tell me a bit about your father, that's completely fine. But the main focus is, like you can go off a bit and talk about your father and then come back about the gift and tell me more about the gift and then come back and tell me like, where is it now? Or yeah, you can definitely talk about the person who gave you the gift if you're talking about that, for sure. Yep. Okay. Mohammed, I have a problem concerning the speaking part. The pronunciation I pronounce is not the pronunciation in my mind. It's like when you try to sing a song you're listening to and when you realize your voice is just terrible. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, if you try to speak in another person's accent, if you try to replicate what somebody's accent sounds like, and in your head it sounds perfect, and then you try to say it, it just sounds nothing like the real accent. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, but the thing is, you have problems that you need to fix. So it's not what it sounds like in your head, it's what it sounds like coming out of your mouth is what's important. So there are obviously mistakes that you're making that you need to fix. So you need to identify what those mistakes are. If you can identify the mistakes yourself, that's perfect. Just find out what they are. Find out. So for example, if it's mispronunciation, so you're pronouncing the W sound as a V. So when you need to say well, you say vel. And what you're doing is you're doing this when you need to do this, when you need to do this. So if you can figure out what the mistake is and what you should be doing instead, you can fix that by yourself, no problem. Well, not no problem. That's not true. You can fix that by yourself, but it's difficult and it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of concentration. But if you don't know what your mistakes are, you'll need to, get a language teacher or even a friend who's got a good level of pronunciation and get them to explain to you what your problems are. So you need to find out exactly what the problem is first and then work on fixing it. So it's a pronunciation problem you're describing, and the only solution is to fix each mistake one at a time. So there might be 6 or 7 different mistakes you're making. Just work on each one, fix it, move on to the next one, fix it, and so on like that. Okay, a little problem with my software. Sorry, I got cut off there. Just one moment. I need to make sure my microphone's working here. Okay. Yep, we're good. I think that was an internet connection or some problem there. Okay. Otoku, you're very welcome. Let me just find my place here now. Okay, here we are. Humayun Ahmed, sir, how can I will improve reading module? It just depends on what mistake you're making. Sorry, just checking my software. So yeah, it depends what mistake you're making. Like I said earlier on, like if you finish doing a practice speaking test, you need to go and find out what you've done wrong. So look at every incorrect answer and figure out what did you do wrong. Was it a spelling mistake that you don't know how to spell the word? Well, then you need to improve your spelling. Is it because there are too many words that you don't understand? Well, then you need to improve your vocab. Is it because you're not looking at the context of the reading. So you're looking at the word and you're guessing, but you're not guessing correctly. Like sometimes, you won't know a word, but you can use the context of the other sentences to understand it, or at least have a good guess at what it means. And maybe you're not good at that skill. Maybe that's something you need to improve. Maybe you're including too many words in the answer. You were told to include 2 words and you included 3 words. There are many different types of mistakes that you could make. And there are many different weaknesses. You could be weak in reading, you could be weak in vocab, you could be weak in grammar. And again, you just need to figure out what exactly your mistakes are. And there will be several different mistakes. It won't just be one type of mistake. But once you figure out what you've done wrong, then fixing those mistakes will become an option. But if you don't know what you're doing wrong, then how do you know what to fix? So analyzing all of your mistakes is a very, very important step when it comes to improving your reading scores and your listening and everything really for reading, writing, listening, and speaking. But when it comes to reading and listening, it's something that you kind of have to work through by yourself, and try to remember what you were thinking while you were doing the test, and where was your mind, and what kind of going back through what you were thinking while you were doing it. I always come across difficulties in part 3 questions. What should I do? It depends what your problem is as well. I mean, if the problem is that you don't understand the question, then you need to ask the examiner to explain the question, and you can do that in part 3. You cannot in part 1 or part 2, but in part 3 you can just say, I don't understand the question, or ask for the meaning of a phrase. So make sure you actually understand the question first. If the difficulty is you don't understand the question, then you need to find out. If the difficulty is you can't think of ideas, well, then you need to practice doing this more often. Practice doing it so it gets easier for you and you get faster at thinking of ideas. Maybe you need to give yourself a little bit more time to think before you start speaking. Maybe you're trying to speak. Maybe you start speaking before you have ideas, so then you're under pressure and you don't know exactly what you want to say. So it depends on what the source of the problem is. You need to figure out why it's happening and try to address that. Mehdi, hi, welcome to the live stream. Mandeep, hi Mandeep. Sir, I'm consistently getting 7.5 in listening and reading. How to get perfect 9 band? So like I said, you're going to have to analyze your mistakes, but to get a perfect 9, a lot of that's coming from your language ability. So for every student will get to the point where they fix the mistakes with spelling, they fix the mistake with following the instruction, they fix the mistake with time management, they fix all the other mistakes, and everybody will get to the point where it's their vocab level or their grammar level is stopping them from getting a higher score. Everybody will get to that point. And hopefully, when you get to that point, you're already getting the scores that you need. But everybody will get to the point where they need to improve their vocab and grammar to allow them to get higher reading scores. So if you're at the point where every answer you get is incorrect because you didn't understand the vocabulary, well, you're at the point where the only option you have is to improve vocabulary, and that does take time. And that's why we try to fix all the other mistakes first, because we're just trying to get the IELTS scores as quickly as possible and move on with our lives. But if that's where you are and that's the only option you have, well, that's what you need to do. And it takes time. It takes time. It can take a few months to improve your vocab enough that you're going to get a higher reading score or a higher listening score. So if you're aiming for a band 9, then maybe you're not quite there yet, but you will likely reach that point. You might be able to get up to band 8 without improving your vocab, but very likely that will be the necessary solution if you do need a band 9. Hi Shraddha. How can I handle problem solution essay? What would be the essay structure? I mean, is it okay to write problem and its solution in single paragraph? Yes, you can do that, but yes, you can. but it depends on what problem you've written. So sometimes, like let's say, for example, many people are suffering from obesity. What problems does this cause? So your solution can fix the problem, or your solution can fix the fact that many people are obese. So in that way, you know, if you have a problem and then you're fixing the obesity, well, then the solution isn't a response to the problem. It's a solution to the cause of the problem. So in that case, it's not the most logical organization. So if your problem and solve that problem directly, that's fine. But if it's problem and then solve the cause of the problem, which is the point in the question, this structure that you're talking about isn't as obvious. So probably an easier structure would be just talk about the two problems first and talk about the two solutions second. I would just depend. It would depend on your answers. So if the solution is a direct response to the problem, yes. If not, then probably you don't want to use this structure. See Piyush XX. In the writing task 2, if the question is to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of a problem, do I have to include two main ideas for each paragraph? Yes, you do. Absolutely. If you've been asked for advantages and disadvantages, you need to include two of each. Domenico, sorry, yesterday I did another mock reading test and I ended up a bit disappointed because I got 6.5 due to many wrong answers caused by unfamiliar vocabulary. Of course, I analyzed all my mistakes. Yeah. So sounds like you're going to have to improve your vocab. But again, it would depend. Like, was that a real test produced by Cambridge? Like, was that a real Cambridge IELTS test, or was that a random like test that you found online? You know, that I wouldn't worry about it too much unless it was a proper test produced by IELTS. What should I do if I have problems to differentiate between false and not given? So again, why can you not differentiate? Why do you not understand the difference between false and not given? So is it that you don't know what the difference between something being false and not given, or is it that you don't understand when you read the text, you don't understand the difference between when it's false and not given? Like the example I'll normally use is, let's say, if the question says Lar Ryan is 39 years old, and in the question, in the text, it says Lar is in his 30s. So in his 30s. So do you know if I'm 39? Well, no, it just says in the 30s. So that's not given. It didn't tell you if the answer is true or false. But if the text says Lar is 38 years old, well, then you know, well, this one says 39, this one says 38. That's false. So that the statement is false. So that's the difference between false and not given, is one of them tells you it's wrong, one of them doesn't tell you. So if that's what you mean, that's the difference. But if you're looking at texts and you don't understand if this sentence is false, means that the question is false, or if the question is not given, if that's the situation you're experiencing, that's a language problem, that you don't understand what you're reading and you need to improve whatever it is, the vocab or the grammar or whatever cause it is that you can't understand. Abu Bakir, I have a problem with diagrams in reading. When I face such questions, I struggle to solve them. What I have to do to be expert in these questions. So the thing again is, like, why do you struggle to understand them? What are you doing wrong? And you know, when you're looking at a diagram, what you have to be aware of is that you're generally tagging different nouns. So you're looking for the nouns in the sentences, in the text. So like it's the part of the sentence that's going to be the answer is generally going to be the nouns, the noun phrases. So that's what you're looking at. But again, like, is it that you're finding it difficult to understand the diagram? Is it because there's lots of new vocab? And there will definitely be vocab you don't understand in these questions, but you don't need to understand the specific vocab. You just need to take that vocab and put it in the right part of the diagram. So it's the words that you do understand that help you choose the correct term. But generally the terms themselves will be terms you don't understand. So maybe you're kind of panicking. Maybe you're panicking when you see the term that you don't understand. You go, oh, I don't know this term, I can't use it. But that's not the case. You don't need to understand the term. You just need to read the rest of it, and the rest of it guides you towards what that term, where that term goes in the diagram. So I wouldn't worry too much if you're finding phrases you don't understand. That's to be expected. Just use the rest of the text to help you find the answer. But again, I'm guessing what your problem is. You need to go back and think and analyze more clearly and figure out what your mistake was. Hi, Tim. Good to see you here. Muna, good afternoon. I just started writing essays. Do you advise me to check high band score essays? High band score essays, like sample essays, are helpful if you don't understand how to write an essay, if you don't understand what types of ideas to use, if you don't understand what structure to use. So that the sample essays are definitely helpful to guide you towards what you're trying to do. But I think, again, it just comes back to what your problems are. If you don't understand how to structure an essay, then sample essays are great. If you are finding it challenging to identify when ideas are relevant and specific, then sample essays are great. So again, it just depends what your weaknesses are. What can be helpful as well is, like, if you get a sample essay, instead of reading the sample essay, just write your own answer to the question first. And then when you're finished, you can compare your answer with the sample essay, and that'll give you some ideas of like improvements that you can make. So sample essays are useful for sure. But again, it just depends on what exactly you're trying to fix, what problem you're trying to solve. Sabina, can you tell us various types of improving reading, and in particular approach for paragraph containing information question? So Sabina, the structure, the strategy that I recommend for reading is to go paragraph by paragraph. So what you'll find most IELTS reading strategies is you go question by question. Read the first question, find the answer. Second question, find the answer. But my strategy is to read the first paragraph and then try to answer every question. And then read the second paragraph and try to answer every question. So instead of reading the text many times, instead of looking at the text once for every question, what you do is you look at every question one time for each paragraph. So you'll find that you can kind of read the text more slowly. You can take your time. You can use the context. You don't need to look for keywords. You don't need to worry about synonyms because you're just understanding the text instead of trying to find words quickly. So that might help you in that you're going to read the full paragraph instead of scramble through the full text trying to find a piece of information. When you go paragraph by paragraph, like I suggested, you get to read the full paragraph and you understand it to the best of your ability, and you'll know what information is in the paragraph. So then as you're looking through the different points in the question, you'll know if it's in it or if it's close to the topic, or you get a better feel for what each paragraph is about because you're actually reading it. What should I do if I understand everything in the passage but I have challenges to find the answer? The same with listening. So the thing is, I don't know if this applies to you, but some students will say, I understand everything. So like when they watch a TV show, they say they understand everything. Or they read a newspaper, they say they understand everything. But because you think you understand everything doesn't mean that you did understand everything, because there's nobody to tell you you're wrong. So, if you read a text and you say, I understand everything, well, what if there's something that you misunderstood? How do you know if you misunderstood it? If you think you understood it, but you didn't, there's nothing to say you're wrong. So what happens in this situation is you're reading the text, you understand everything, and then you look at the questions, and then the things you didn't understand become obvious because now you're like, I don't know how to answer the question. So what I would wonder in your situation is the difference between really understanding everything and thinking you understand everything. So I wonder, like, where are you on that scale? And maybe you don't understand it as much as you think you do. And it's only when you go to answer questions that becomes obvious. Or is it that you don't understand the questions? So you can understand the text, but you don't understand the question. But I can't imagine why you could understand 100% of a big long text and then you can't understand a question. That, to me, I feel like somebody would, your level would dictate you understand everything here, you would understand everything here. Or you understand 80% here, then you would understand 80% here. I would expect somebody to be in the same situation for both questions and texts in relation to how much they understand. So I do wonder if that's maybe the case, is that what you think it means and what it really means aren't the same thing. Again, you would need to analyze your mistakes more deeply yourself. You'd need to figure out, like, what is the challenge? Where is the challenge coming from? But that's something I think you should consider, is, perhaps your belief that you understand everything might not be reality. And again, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's something that's certainly worth considering. Okay. Hafiz, is there a maximum limit for writing task? I am very expressive and I write comprehensively, so I end up writing around 250 to 350 words in task 1 and 2 respectively. It's a little bit long, but the reason that it's a bit long is because of the time limit. So generally you can get a really good score in about 180 words in task 1 and about 280 words in task 2. So, if you're meeting the requirements for task achievement, coherence and cohesion, vocab, grammar within a shorter essay, then what benefit is a longer essay? There's really nothing. There's nothing better. There's nothing that will improve your score more by writing more if you can already achieve what you need to achieve in a shorter essay. So the thing is, the time that you spend writing a longer essay, if you use that time to go back and look for your vocab mistakes, look for your grammar mistakes in task 1, make sure all the data is correct, make sure you use the correct category names, like going back and making sure there are fewer mistakes, that's a better use of your time than writing a longer answer. So, even if you can do it in 20 minutes and you can do it in 40 minutes, that doesn't mean that you've produced the best possible answer that you can. That doesn't mean that you're going to get the highest possible score that you can. So it's, finding that balance between making sure there's enough, but also having time to check the quality. So you might find that even though you can do it, you'll end up with a higher score by writing a shorter essay. Okay, Domenico. Anyway, multiple choice questions seem to be my weakness, although sometimes I feel I'm lacking confidence in answers. Certain questions not given. Yeah, so that's what we were talking about earlier on as well. A very common mistake, or very common issue. What should I do if I'm not able to read listening part 4 fully? If you're not able to read the questions. So, in each question, there's like, if it's a multiple choice question, you don't need to read the options until later. So it might be that you're reading all of the options, and that doesn't give you enough time to read all of the main part of the questions. So maybe that's what's going wrong. I know there's no break in the middle of part 2, in the middle of part 4 in listening. So maybe it's, you're kind of just preparing the first half and not preparing the second half of the questions. Again, there will come a time where the audio starts and it happens to everybody that you didn't have enough time to prepare all the questions. So you're trying to choose the right time to read. So, like, you don't want to read the questions while there's an important part in the audio. So it's kind of training yourself as to, when they've answered a question and they're kind of introducing the next topic, being aware of when they're transitioning from one part of the conversation to the next, and being aware is like, okay, this is a part where I don't need to listen, and then focusing back on the questions and trying to read ahead and kind of prepare yourself for what's coming, and then listening in again when the time is right. So you kind of need to train yourself to do that as well. Mohammed, when it comes to Cambridge IELTS Book 14, my listening scores are around 35. However, when it comes to complete IELTS 6.5 to 7.5, I'm getting around 30. Why is this? Complete IELTS 6.5 to 7.5. Is that book published by Cambridge? Complete IELTS 6.5 to 7.5. Yeah, it's published by Cambridge, so it will be reliable. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly why your scores are lower. Maybe the topics, maybe the topics in the audios are less familiar to you. Maybe in book 14, the vocab, the topics are good for you because you're familiar with the vocab, and the topics in the other one you're not as familiar. So it might be that might be the case as well. Ahmed, thank you. No problem. Another question about the computer-based IELTS exam. Will I be given a piece of paper and pencil to make notes? Yes, you will. Sir, can I have your email? You can. Wrong side. This side, lar@completetestsuccess.com. That's my email there. Hi, Alexander. What you suggest me if I want to implement more sophisticated words collocations in my active vocabulary, just have more output? No, don't. Like, it's a mistake that students make, is they're trying to find the words that they feel are impressive, the words that other people use them, they sound impressive, they want to sound impressive, they want to use words that other people that sound impressive when other people use them. But the thing is, you're using words that are impressive to people who are lower level than you, and people who are higher level than you, they're using words that are impressive to you. That's always the way it's going to be. So the words that sound impressive or sophisticated to you now, it's just because they're above your level. So you don't want to go learning words that are above your level. You want to learn words that are at your level. So instead of trying to find the impressive words, continue learning the basic words, the simple words, the words that are suitable for where you are. And eventually, when you get to that point, you will learn them, and they won't even seem impressive at that time. But if you're thinking back 2 years ago, what words do you know now that would have been impressive 2 years ago? Well, you're thinking about the same thing. So you're kind of looking into the future of words that they're just going to be normal words to you in the future. So stay building on the basics. Don't try and jump above where you are. Stay building on the foundation that you have, and just work up slowly but surely from your current ability. Okay, is it okay if I spend in part 2 a minute for introduction and not topic-based things, then correct and spend all time to talk about topic? No, because the examiner isn't going to count that. You have to. It has to be connected to the topic you're asked to talk about. And if you don't talk about the topic you're asked to talk about, nothing you say will be counted towards improving your score. So no, you can't. You can't just wing it and talk about anything you want. The examiner, you're not going to trick the examiner into giving you a high score by saying whatever you want. You have to talk about the topic you were asked to talk about. It's very important. Okay. Odin son. My exam is around the corner. 20 days last until my exam day. Can you give me advice what things I should do? Well, again, it just depends on what your weaknesses are. Are you getting the scores you need in reading and listening? If you are, then you don't need to look at them anymore. And if you're not, then you need to focus on them. Like, are you able to write a task 1 and a task 2 essay in 60 minutes? Are you able to write to the standard that you need to write to? So, like, it's just constantly finding problems that you need to fix. That's what you need to do. If you don't know what problems you have, you need to find out what your problems are. And that's basically, like, the people who join my courses, that's basically what I'm doing with them. Like, first of all, I'll show them what I want them to do. Then I get them to do it. And then I tell them what things they've done incorrectly. They fix those problems, they do it again. I tell them what they've done incorrectly, they fix those problems, and they do it again. So it's just about constantly finding and fixing problems. That's the whole strategy for any part of the test. And if you don't know what your problems are, you need to find out. And if you do know what your problems are, but you don't know how to fix them, well, you need to find out. So, feel free to ask me questions here, but you should always be finding problems and fixing them. That's the goal. Shraddha, I'm constantly scoring 6.5 in writing task 2, and my areas of improvements are task response and coherence and cohesion, and I'm struggling with these areas. I don't know how to solve them. So with task response, the problem is going to be your ideas aren't relevant, so you're not responding directly to the question, or your ideas are vague, so you're not directly saying what your idea is. So those are the only two problems when it comes to task response with the main ideas. And then you need to consider how you'll develop those ideas. And it's the same thing. Is your development relevant? Is your development specific? And that's all you need to consider for task response. Always, how many ideas do you need? Are they relevant? Are they specific? Develop those ideas. Is your development relevant? Is it specific? And don't make it more complicated than that. That's all you need to check for. When it comes to coherence and cohesion, it's following the correct structures, using cohesive devices correctly, and using referencing correctly. So which of those things are you doing wrong? And again, if you don't know which ones you're doing wrong, you need to find out, like get an English teacher, get an IELTS expert, get someone to tell you what your problems are so you can fix them. But, task response and coherence and cohesion, there are many ways that, depending on what your writing is, if you don't know what your mistakes are, you can't just do something to fix it. You need to find out where you're going wrong first. Mamadul, does reading band 9 sample essay help me improve my writing skills? So we were talking about that earlier on. If you didn't hear my answer, you can just watch the recording. We'll be finishing up here in 18 minutes. So you'll have the recording and you'll be able to hear my response to that. If so, can you suggest some books to me which I can buy? There's plenty of reliable stuff online. I wouldn't recommend. You'll find a load of stuff on my website as well. I got a bunch of sample essays for task 1, task 2, sample letters for general training task 1. And there's plenty of other reliable websites. So I wouldn't really suggest buying a book. Just you'll find all that online. Mandeep, you're very welcome. Okay. Shraddha, how to improve writing task 2 score from 6.5 to 7 or 7.5 if person is scoring less than task response? Okay, so we already talked about that, Shraddha, so that'll be the same thing again. Sharav, hi sir, hi Sharav. My previous speaking score is 5.5 and my desired score is 6. Please give me some tips to get 6. So again, it comes back. You probably think that I'm repeating myself at this point, but it's the truth. Why are you getting a 5.5 instead of a 6? So is it that you've got a pronunciation problem? Is it that you've got a fluency problem? Is it your vocab? Is it your grammar? It's either going to be one or two of those areas. It's not 3 of them because you've got a 5.5. So either you need to improve one area or you need to improve 2 areas, find out what those problems are and fix them. And even if it's your pronunciation, you can't just improve pronunciation. You need to know, what mistakes are you making? Is it your sentence stress? Are you pronouncing V as W? Are you pronouncing TH as S? Is it consonant clusters? Is it the sentence stress, the intonation? Like what are you doing wrong? Maybe you're not chunking the language, so it's difficult to follow. Like I can make a list of possible problems, but without hearing you speak, I can't tell you exactly what your problems are. So definitely that's something that you need to find out. Or of course, you could just work on improving everything, improve your fluency, improve your vocab, improve your grammar, improve your pronunciation, but it's going to take more time. But I mean, you'll be certain if you have enough time, just improve everything and, that'll work. But, compared to improving one area compared to improving all 4, it's obviously it's a longer a solution that will take more time. Momotaro. My problem with writing or speaking is the linking words that I should use, and how do I flow from one sentence to another? So, I mean, you know the problem and you don't know the linking words. So, I mean, you need to learn the linking words. You know what your problem is already, and I believe you know what the solution is too. So learn those different cohesive devices that you need, and also make sure that you make sure when you're learning them that you learn which ones are suitable for writing and which ones are suitable for speaking, because they're not interchangeable. There are ones that you'll learn for writing that we would never use in speaking, and vice versa. The ones from speaking might be too informal for writing. So make sure that you're not learning phrases and using them in the incorrect situation. Madisir, good to see you here. Mandeep, dear sir, if I don't know some words in academic reading, should I understand other words around them? Oh, yeah, that's a very important skill. Yeah, that's an essential part of the reading test. I mean, even for me, especially in section 3, there will be words that I've never heard before, depending on the topic. But that would not stop me from being able to answer the question. So yeah, absolutely, that's an incredibly important skill to have for the reading test. It's an essential skill. If you can't do that, then you wouldn't expect to get top marks. Sir, last I gave the IELTS exam, my desired score was 4 in each module, but unfortunately I got 3 bands in reading. So again, it's at that level, it's not going to be as much about exam skills. It's going to be more about your language. So for you at that level, just studying general English will be enough. Reading, do more reading, study more vocab, study grammar. You don't really need to get down into you don't really need to get very capable when it comes to the various exam skills that are required. Just being able to actually read in English will be enough. So I wouldn't worry too much about exam skills and IELTS specific skills for the IELTS test in your situation. To improve my lexical resource, I try to study like 1 or 2 topics every day, and I try to collect the maximum of vocab related to each one, and then I try to use them in sentences. Is that a good approach? The thing I wonder, what you're saying sounds good, but what I worry about is, are you reviewing vocab? So, if you learn 10 words today, and then you learn 10 words tomorrow, and then you learn another 10 words the next day, and another 10 words the next day, can you remember those 10 words from day one? For most people, the answer would be no. And it's reviewing those words. So what you're talking about, everything you're doing, great, continue. But the reviewing is just as important, if not more important, in that you're not going to remember a word the first time you see it. So you need to come back again and again and again and again, keep reviewing again and again and again. And you will get to the point where you start to remember it. But if you're not reviewing, you never will. Samir, hi, sir. I have queries regarding IELTS. Yeah, go ahead, Samir. Hi, Lar. You are very generous in helping for preparing and achieving required band score IELTS. God bless you. Thank you, Hassan. Azizi Beck. In speaking, which is better, working on each part separately or focusing on them equally? Well, it's not so much. I mean, people struggle with part 2 because they find it difficult to talk for 2 minutes. So if you're finding it difficult to talk for 2 minutes, practice that part of the test. Part 3, some people find the questions challenging because they don't know what to say. And again, practice that part of the test if that's your experience. But ultimately, when it comes to improving your speaking score, more important is your focus on fluency, vocab, grammar, pronunciation. Which of those are you having a problem with? Fix that. So, more so than focusing on each part of the test. If somebody comes to the IELTS test, they've got very good fluency, very good vocab, very good grammar and pronunciation. They're going to find part 1, part 2, and part 3 to be easy or not very challenging, regardless of the format. Imagine doing a similar test, similar like an IELTS test, but in your own language. You wouldn't struggle in part 2. You wouldn't struggle in part 3. You'd have no problem. So speaking really isn't as complicated as writing. Whereas writing, somebody with great English can make mistakes in task achievement and get a low score. Whereas in speaking, if you can speak, you can speak, and there's not much more involved. So I would say absolutely practice part 2, practice part 3 if they're challenging for you. But ultimately, you should be learning, you should be improving your weak areas in fluency, vocab, grammar, or pronunciation. Hi, sir. I got 7 bands in just 2 months with your tips. Fantastic. Congratulations, Parv. Very good news. Well done. Mamadul, 80% of my incorrect answers in listening is related to singular or plural, which struggle to hear the S, especially in stressful environment. So practice that. Listen to an audio, mark down which words are plural, which words are singular, go back, check the transcript. TED Talks is good because they give you the full transcript in one go. If you're watching YouTube, you just get each sentence as they say it. But in TED Talks, they open up the full transcript and you can see from the start to the end. So you don't need to play through the video to read it. So it might be interesting for you to use that and try and improve that way. Okay, so there's one more question left. So let's look at this question and then we'll finish up here for today. I need to drop my daughter up to her childminder anyway. So an extra few minutes will go down well. Mandeep, sir, how can I book one-to-one lessons with you because I want to get 8 bands in both writing and speaking? Yeah, absolutely, Mandeep. So you can just send me an email, lar@completetestsuccess.com. Let me share my website with you as well. Okay. Okay, so I've just included a link in the comments, one-on-one support. You'll find my various one-on-one services there as well. Okay, so that's all the questions. We'll finish up a little bit early there today. Some of you have tests coming up. Best of luck. Parv, congratulations again on getting your scores, and take care of yourselves. Like I said, I'm not doing a live stream next week. I'm going to take a break, but I'll be back the following week. So I'll talk to you all then. Take care of yourselves. Thanks very much, everyone, and bye-bye for now.